Hey, I'm Steven with NorCal Screen Print Supply. If you're somewhat new to screen printing, the tips in this video will help you achieve a better print. In this video, we're going to focus on screen printing a shirt on a screen printing press, which we have here. One color, one station, Riley 150. The concepts in screen printing are the same, whether you have a one color, one station press or a 6-color, 4-station press, it doesn't really matter. The basic components of a screen printing press are the screen clamp, the platen, and the registration gate. Before we jump into our tips, let's talk about the basics of what makes a good print. A good print will have nice, crisp, clean lines, not lose tiny detail throughout the print process. Your print should have even ink deposit throughout the entirety of the print and not be thicker on one side and thinner on the other side. The fibers of the t-shirt should not be showing through the ink, they should be covered completely all throughout the print. Now that we've established some guidelines for a good print, let's dive into some tips. For our first tip, let's talk about off contact. Off contact can be defined as the area between our screen mesh and our platen. Our screen mesh is not sitting directly on the platen, there is a gap between the platen and the mesh. That is proper off contact. When the squeegee is used to push the ink through the mesh to make the print, the mesh should bounce up off of the substrate after the squeegee passes by. The squeegee should not rest or stick to the t-shirt underneath it. If it sticks to the t-shirt, it's gonna wanna lift the t-shirt up, which we don't want. On this press, the Riley 150, we have some off-contact bolts in the back, which we can use to adjust our off-contact. Your press may not have this. If it doesn't, we use an old trick where we actually tape a quarter underneath the screen frame and rest it on the platen to create the proper off-contact and gap that we need between the mesh and the platen. Our next tip is in regard to keeping the shirt in the same exact place while you're printing. We use a product called Spray Mist. That product is sprayed onto the platen so that when we put the shirt on, it sticks to the platen and doesn't move. If the shirt moves during printing, you'll have a blurry print or it won't look quite right. Our next tip is in regard to our squeegee. Your squeegee should be wider than your actual print so that you don't have to make multiple strokes to cover the print. That will create lines in your print. So in this case, we have a 13-inch squeegee and our print's about 12 inches wide. In addition to being wide enough, our squeegee should not have any nicks or inconsistencies or grooves in it. Those things will create a line down our print as well. Notice that our squeegee edge is very sharp. We're going to use the sharpest part of the squeegee when we print our shirt. If our squeegee is dull, then we won't produce a crisp print. There are two main squeegee strokes that we're going to talk about here. One is a flood stroke and the second is called a clear stroke. With a flood stroke, we're simply covering the print area with a very thin layer of ink. And with a clear stroke, we're pushing that ink through onto our t-shirt and clearing the ink through the screen. That's why it's called a clear stroke. So after flooding the print area with the squeegee with ink, we are going to clear it. It's very important that we don't bring the squeegee down too far when we clear the ink through. And it's also very important that we don't have the squeegee up at a 90-degree angle. We want this at roughly a 60-degree angle, so again, we can use that sharpest edge of the squeegee to push the ink through. To achieve a good print, moderate to strong pressure is used during the clear stroke. If there's not enough pressure used, we will leave ink behind in the screen mesh and it won't create a good print. We can repeat the clear stroke, but we don't want to do it too many times because we'll lose detail in our print and blur our edges. So for this print, we're going to use one of my favorite shirts from AS Color. And we're going to print our sample print on here with black plastisol ink. We have a 160 mesh count here, which is perfect for the amount of detail that we have. And you can see all of our pre-burned screens ship with a center line down the middle, which allows you to use a Sharpie to draw a line down the middle of your platen so that when you clamp your screen in, you simply align the center mark to the line on the platen and you have your print center justified. So when you load your shirt on, if you get it in the center of the platen, your print's coming down in the center, then everything's gonna line up nicely. So before we load our shirt onto our platen, we are going to use a product called spray adhesive. We don't want our shirt to move once it's loaded onto the platen. If our shirt moves when we're printing, it's gonna be blurry or we're gonna have unwanted effects. All right, got a little spray adhesive on there. We're going to start with the back print on this shirt, and this shirt is side seamed, so we are going to handle our shirt by the side seams, as you can see there, and we're going to load it onto our platen. We're going to go about all the way on, and then we're going to pull it as far as it'll go in that direction. Now I can see my shirt is a little bit to the left, so I'm going to lift it up off the platen and back to my right to even it out. So when you're loading a shirt, you want to pull it onto the platen as far as it will go. And then when you pull it back to drop it where you want it, you must lift the shirt off the platen. If you don't lift it and you just pull straight back, you're going to get this skipping effect because of the adhesive on the platen. So for that reason, when we pull it all the way on, we're going to lift it up off the platen and back to where we want it. If we pull it too far, just pull it back all the way on again, and then pull it up off the platen and drop it where we want it. So we have about a 4-inch drop for our back print, which is about perfect. It's what we want. So we are ready to use our flood stroke and our clear stroke to print this shirt. When it comes to flooding the print area, it can be done by pulling the ink or pushing the ink, and I will demonstrate both. So with one hand, hold the squeegee, and with your other hand, you're going to hold the screen off of the platen. And you're not going to pull all of that ink across. That's enough ink to print probably 100 shirts, not one shirt. So we're just going to pull a fraction of that ink, and to show you how little pressure you need, I'm just going to use 2 fingers, and I'm going to pull that ink toward me to flood the print area. Now I'm going to set the squeegee back down, and I'm going to drop the screen, and you can see our print area is nice and flooded with a thin, even layer of ink. I'm going to show you how you can do this by pushing. So if you have some ink on this side, you can use very, very light pressure and simply push the ink to the other side and flood it that way as well. So you can use a push stroke or a pull stroke to flood the print area, and also on the flip side, you can use a push stroke or a pull stroke to clear the area. So in this one, I'm going to go ahead and pull it. I'm going to lift the squeegee up so that I don't bring more ink onto my print area, and I'm going to set it down, making sure that I'm further than the bottom of my print. And I'm going to put one foot in front of me and one foot kind of back and anchor myself, and I'm going to use a good amount of pressure. I'm going to push down and pull the squeegee toward me. So if you want to take a look here, you can see that we got most of the ink out of our mesh. It's very common that the first time you push the ink through, you're going to have to clear it at least twice or 3 times. So I'm going to demonstrate the flood stroke by pushing it one more time. So I'm going to go ahead and flood this by pushing that ink back across. And if it's not flooded all the way, you can still pull it again. And I'm going to come back and do it one more time. And we're listening for kind of a zipping sound because we're trying to use that sharp edge of our squeegee to get the ink through the mesh onto the shirt. And there we have a nice clean print. If you notice, the edges of our print are very fine and crisp. If we keep flooding and clearing the screen, we're going to lose that detail. So you really want to flood it and clear it maybe 2 to 3 times total, and not more than that, because like I said, you will start to lose detail in your print. You'll notice again that the edges of our print are very crisp and the detail is perfect. That's what we're going for. This is a nice print. So from here, we are going to use our heat gun to cure the ink on this print, and we're going to do our best to do a nice kind of even cure all across the print. Black ink is the easiest ink to cure. It's the thinnest ink. This black cures at about 280 degrees total. You do need to cure it thoroughly because you want to heat the ink to the middle of the print, not just the surface. So we have pushed this ink into the shirt fibers, so we want to make sure that we get it hot enough to have a full cure through the full ink deposit, with particular attention to the edges of our print. You don't want to not cure the edges because whatever area that is not cured fully will wash out when we wash the shirt. So not only are you trying to get the ink dry to the touch, which we've definitely achieved, but you're trying to cure the ink through the entire layer. of ink. You can also use a flash dryer like this to cure your ink. This is an 18 by 18 Afforda flash, and it pairs great with this one color, one station press. If your order quantities are getting up into the couple few dozens, 50s, etc., you might want to invest in a flash dryer. It's going to be a better way to cure your prints because of the consistency of the heating element. You can simply put it over your print. Usually 8 to 12 seconds is going to be a good amount of time to cure a single layer of ink like this. So when we take our shirt off the platen, if you have a lot of spray adhesive on here, you can tend to pull the shirt off and stretch it and your print will warp. So we're going to go ahead and grab it down here and just kind of pop it like that. And then on this end, we're going to pop it up, and you can tell it's kind of hard to get off of there, but we do it that way so that our print remains intact and not stretched out. So that looks good. Okay, we're in a great spot here. We have taped off our back print and we have our left chest print ready to go. I've checked our off contact. Still looks good. We still have a nice gap. And I grabbed the squeegee here. We have a 5-inch squeegee. This covers our print nicely and it's in good shape. It's been used, but there are no nicks or anything like that. We're gonna go ahead and put down some black plastisol. Just gonna put a little bit because I'm only printing this one shirt. That's probably enough to print 50 shirts for this print. Black is thin ink and it goes a long way. Black is also the easiest to start printing with because it's easy to get through the screen mesh. It's very opaque and it has good coverage on your shirt. Here's our back print, and now we're gonna print the front. I have enough spray adhesive left on here so that my shirt will not move. I'm gonna load our shirt on, just like last time. Lift it up off the platen, pull it back to about there. We're actually going to pull it on a little bit further so that our chest print is not too low. We don't want it too low. All right, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of ink here. I'm not going to grab all of that ink, just a little bit. I'm going to flood it. Nice thin area. Notice that I'm not taking this ink and pulling it all the way onto my screen frame. You definitely don't want to pull the ink all the way onto the screen frame. When you do that, the ink starts to get up and over the screen frame, and then you get ink on your finger, and then that's how you get ink on your shirts. So we burn our stencils far enough away from the edge of the screen because it's easier to print and it keeps ink off of the frame, and overall it's just less messy. So I've flooded my print area. I'm going to go ahead and give it a good amount of pressure, clear it through. And I can see we have a little bit of clog here. I believe this is adhesive left over from our tape. So I'm going to see if I can clear it a couple more times to get that out of there. Give it a little flood, clear it through, and we'll give it one more. You can see little trails of ink that went across. That's not going to affect our print. What I'm looking for is that we've cleared all of the ink through the screen mesh and there's none left in it. And if we get a good look at that, you can see there's no ink left in there. So you notice for this print, I pulled the ink across with a flood stroke and I cleared it with a pull, which is perfect. You can pull the ink across to clear it, or you can push it, but you don't want to do both in the same print. You don't want to clear the ink through with a pull stroke and then clear the ink through with a push stroke. And the reason why is each time you clear it, you're pulling the mesh back when you do it that way, or when you pull it toward you, you're pulling the mesh toward you. So the mesh is moving ever so slightly and it will create a blurriness on your print, and you don't want it to be blurry. So if you're gonna pull it, then pull it. If you're gonna push it, then push it, but don't do both on the same print. So let's lift up our screen and check out our print. Looks pretty good. Nice crisp lines. Our placement looks good. We hope this video has helped you out with some important tips, and if you have any questions that we maybe didn't cover in the video, please get in touch with us. If you're interested in purchasing the pre-burn screen or any of this equipment, it's all listed on our website, norcalsps.com. You can also call us at 916-534-8337. We love helping screen printers get the best print possible. Reach out, hit us up. We're down to help you out with whatever project you need. So thanks for watching and keep on printing.